So that of a Jewish academic writes against the way of the world, you know. And it has got to be a lonely endeavor for those people, you know. It's not, one can only imagine that there's a backdrop of like, don't mess around with this, you know, don't cause us problems, or don't take little from this.
At the end of the day, doesn't that spring from their own religious condition? Because they're really tapping into the well streams of what Christianity should be. So it's probably a very important spiritual experience.
True, but internally, spiritually, yes, but politically, it's probably very difficult. You know, it can potentially be very difficult. One can only imagine, you know, and so it's almost a whole subject. Sort of another book, not by me, you know.
Maybe.
You know, the Christian academic thrust into this. And even in the Jewish timelines, they do not indicate generally the Christian academics were involved in this. You have to go to the Christian timelines to find the Christian academics who are involved in it. Not that Jews are shunning them, they're just not even aware of it. They're just simply not aware of it. I'm not talking about, you know, the head of Jewish studies at NYU. I'm talking about, you know, your random Jewish teachers simply not aware of what's going on that front. To me, it's just fascinating. I mean, there's almost no words for it. Anyway.
I have a speculative question.
Right.
I wonder how Jewish-Christian relations would have played out had the rebels in '66 managed to pull off Judah Maccabee. Had they won, quote unquote, had the temple not been destroyed, had the Romans said, okay, we're backing off, or had the Parthians actually come to their assistance and perhaps made the possibility of redemption come true. I wonder how that then would have played out.
Right, we ask an easier historical question. What if the Jews had not rebelled? What if they just not rebelled?
Yes.
I mean, that's an easier play. That's an easier play. To say they prevailed over Rome, that's a tough sell. Right. It's a sort of similar question that you're asking.
That's right.
Right. But like, how would this have all played out?
And it is key because it's clear that the arson of the temple in 70 and then its complete demolition by the Romans in 135 caused many Christian thinkers, I referred to Justin Martyr earlier in connection with supersession. He saw the destruction of the temple as proving that Judaism was a thing of the past.
And any group would do the same thing. You know, we prevail, therefore we must be ideologically right. We all do that.
Well, the question is the we in that case, Christians, are they really saying we prevail?
That's an excellent point. In the second century, they're not saying that, and they can't say that because they're still very much a minority movement.
Right, but 500 years later, they can say the forces of history lent themselves to our prevailing. You know, it's all God's plan that we should prevail. We would all do a similar thing. No matter what the zigs and zags are, we end up on the throne. We vindicate by saying we were right. We're morally. You know, we must be right because we prevail. It's a human tendency.
Our manifest destiny.
It's our destiny. Right. Since we prevailed, we must have been right all along. And let's not pay too much attention to the victims. You know, it's human nature. I'm saying that hopefully we can transcend human nature. You know, but it should not be a shock when that happens. That's what I'm saying, because it happens in culture after culture. You know, you hope to be on the right side of these victories. You know?
Isn't there something inherently wrong with interpreting history that way? Because in essence, what you're saying is, I know the will of God.
I'm saying we all do that. I'm saying all cultures do it.
Right.
All cultures do it. When the Jews prevail over the Seleucids, they say it's the will of God that we prevail. You know, when the Christians prevail over the Jews, say it's the will of God that we prevail. You know, try to get up in the synagogue and say or the equivalent, after the Maccabees prevailed, they'll soon say, well, it wasn't the will of God, we just happened to be better tactics, you know. You know, it's like, yes, and ideally we would like to think that we do not make that extrapolations. You know, and there's no justification, you know, we're all responsible for actions, we're all responsible for mass murder, responsible for demonization, responsible for every last thing. But at the same token, it's not exclusive to one group. This dynamic is not exclusive to one group. It'll tend to find itself in any supermajority. It'll tend to find itself in any supermajority. But still, the supermajority has to be taken to task at the simultaneously. That's what's a rough generalization. Anybody want to, at this point, take a cut at anything that I've said today that you want to fine tune at this point? On any of these subjects. Notice if anything you want to clarify, you want to set the record straight. Just like I said.
There's actually something I would I don't know whether I would clarify or maybe question might not even be the right word. A number of times you mentioned Jesus as an Orthodox Jew. I don't know that term really is meaningful in that context. Orthodox, in that with Judaism in such a state of flux in that period, clearly he is observant. Clearly he is Torah accepting.
Some normative Judaism.
Normative, yes. Maybe normative would be better than the word Orthodox in that regard.
Well, I'm
Or
frank.
even common.
Common.
Well, you what?
Common.
Well, I'm using the term that these highly recognized scholarship academics are using. It's not my term. Orthodox Jewish. And even today, what is Orthodox Jewish? Even today, right? It's more. I'm trying to say he was in that umbrella. He was in that general umbrella. Or he can make a legitimate claim that he was in that umbrella.
He was definitely normative. In other words, in terms of his own personal behavior, was clearly within what we would consider to be a norm.
Right, it must have that the word normative this nor that. It's not a term widely understood by non-academics.
Right, that's true.
Nor is the word common. It's the word Orthodox. Orthodox is a word commonly used, but it happens to be used by the academics I quote. I'm actually careful, as opposed to many players. I like to quote a whole paragraph or a whole many chapters, as opposed to one sentence, which we all know can be spun either way. And so that's just to respond to what you say. But it's no question the word Orthodox Jewish. What does it even mean today?
Right.
And how it is in the same family. The right wing of the family doesn't consider the left wing Orthodox, and the left wing doesn't consider their neighbor Orthodox. This goes on and on. It's sort of more like looking from the distance from the planet Mars. Are they sort of within the Orthodox?
When did Jews start to refer to themselves as Orthodox? Since in origin it's such a Christian term. It comes from
19th century.
I would have thought.
The form
Maybe
on the scene, I suppose, maybe a differentiation between those who...
I don't know that Hirsch was the first to use it, but certainly it was within a generation. Well, it's interesting to note that as late as the 1930s, a lot of Orthodox rabbis are not necessarily comfortable with the term Orthodox, and you find people using the term, just to throw out a jargon term for a moment, and I'll define it in a second. Haredi.
Interesting.
Haredi, of course, is taken to mean now ultra super
to the right,
off the as close to the spectrum as you can without falling off in terms of shunning modernity and everything else. My area of expertise is actually the 1930s, 1940s. I joke that I'm the world's foremost expert on 1935. But I was rather interested in that regard. That I read a statement by Rabbi Meir Berlin, Bar Ilan, one of the leaders of the Orthodox Zionist or religious Zionist movement in the 1930s. He gave a speech at the Zionist Congress in 1935, stating that the Zionist organization had to start paying attention to, quote, the Eda Haredi, the God-fearing, the shaker, as it
Right,
were,
right,
community within Judaism. And he was referring to Mizrahi, that was his movement. And nowadays, of course, nobody would ever even think about use of such a term. The reason I've raised the whole question about Orthodox indeed is because these terms are so loaded.
They're loaded up. You have to use a term.
Austritt-Orthodoxy, I think is where it entered.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And interestingly, in the late 20s, when they dedicated Hebrew University, one of the most outstanding speakers was Rabbi Koch. And David Tzvi Hoffman.
Yeah.
So then there was some sort of connection between the academic, less religious, Zionist world and mainstream Orthodox.
So I'll ask you another question.
A matter of where their origins were. Let's face it, most non-Orthodox leaders, or certainly the leadership generation of the Zionists in Israel in the 30s and 40s, direct households, homes that were very, very Jewish. Indeed, one could argue that perhaps their Judaism was more intense even than some, the Orthodox Jews or marginally Orthodox Jews in the United States today, because they got from that real core of living a Jewish life, even if you didn't necessarily accept the concept of God, Torah.
Right, I think Weston made that distinction between, he said, it's such a person is not because he rejects, he said it's not because it's mamaoros, he's ignorant. Like, and basically, ignorance is what characterizes, I guess, modern Judaism in America to a great extent, as opposed to
needless to say,
rejection of
that's an interesting point, of course, because in Judaism, being an apikoros is considered less bad in some senses than being an amaretz.
So I'm asking that all three of you a super loaded question, okay? If Jesus walked into this room now, what would he be wearing? How would he be dressed? How would he be
Want
dressed?
to start from the top down or from the bottom up?
Start from the top down. How would he be dressed? What's your image? Is his head covered?
Probably.
Is his head covered?
Oh, in all probability.
Is his head covered?
Probably.
Okay.
He's not going to be wearing a knitted yarmulke.
Wait. Is he wearing? Does he have tzitzis? Is he wearing tzitzis? What's your image?
Probably.
Are his tzitzis out?
Yes, but only because there's no place to tuck them in.
But for problem, okay. So the image. Okay, so what's your? Is he wearing tzitzis or is tzitzis out?
I
What's your
would think.
guess?
I would think only on occasion.
On occasion.
Yeah.
And what's your guess?
I believe they would be. I also believe that if Maimonides came back nowadays, he'd be teaching at YU.
No. Don't bring my mind into this.
Putting in a modern context, something from another period.
No.